Hey, so Mile. Mile is the third track on the album, and it had quite a story as to how it came to be. So, we'll start at the beginning. The track started out basically as any track would. I was just playing around with a synth, making a synth, whatever, like plucky kind of a synth. And I played something on my keyboard, and I was like, this sounds cool, I'm gonna make a pattern out of it. And then I made a pattern, and then I added drums, and then there was a build, and then there was a drop, and then the track was made, basically, right? And so it took a few days to basically make the track, and at that point it was 3 minutes and 7 seconds-ish, and it was missing a drop vocal. That was the only thing it was missing. Now, at the time, it wasn't called Mile, it was called Golden Lamborghini, which might sound like a cooler name than Mile, but trust me, Mile, like, it's cool. We'll get to that. But Golden Lamborghini was what it was called, and I kind of just ended up scrapping that because it had nothing to do with the album theme. The only reason it was called Golden Lamborghini was because one day I was driving home and there was like a gold-colored Lamborghini, not gold-plated, but like, wow, that would be something. I know there are Lamborghinis that have been gold-plated and stuff, but it wasn't that. It was just gold-colored, and I was like, oh, that'd be like a song title, whatever. But it had nothing to do with the album, and it would also probably get associated with Purple Lamborghini, which had nothing to do with that song, so scrapped Golden Lamborghini. And then I had this great idea that I was going to call it One Small Step. That was the title. And then the drop vocal would be But a Giant Leap for Mankind. And it would be Neil Armstrong, okay? So I was going to go like sample Neil Armstrong, be like, oh, this is cool. It's like themed with the Apollo mission, just like the first track was, because the title track Limitless, which I had already made like long before Mile, the title track was themed around the launch of the Apollo 11 mission. And so I was like, oh, so this would be like when they actually got onto the moon, like it'd be thematic and stuff. But it turns out the audio quality of Neil Armstrong saying that is extremely bad. It's so bad, people don't even know what the exact quote is. They don't know whether he says it's one small step for man or that's one small step for man. You can't really tell from the audio. It's so bad. And so I was like, wow, this is way worse than I remember. But the point is, it wouldn't have worked, and I'm really glad that fell through, actually, because what ended up happening was cooler, in my opinion. So then, kind of like separately from the track, I wasn't working on the track at the time when I had this idea or anything, but I basically like had this idea. I was like, I want a track that's the length of the world record mile time, because I knew it was like something like 3:45, somewhere around there, right? I knew it was around there, and I was like, that's like a good length for a track, right? So I want a track that's the length of the world record mile time, and then call it Mile Run or something, right? And so you can see that's what ended up happening with Mile. So I had to like add a new section, which I'm really glad I did. It's that last like bridge sounding section that has this new drum groove that you haven't heard. It's like halftime, and it has like extra percussion and stuff. It's cool, right? I'm really glad I ended up adding that. That took it from 3:07 to 3:43.13, which is how long it needed to be to match that world record mile time. And then I was still missing the drop vocal. Okay, so I had this track, and it was like, oh yeah, this is so cool, but I still didn't have a drop vocal, okay? I needed a drop vocal. So, one way that the drop vocal might have happened was I was watching this Adam Neely live stream, okay? Adam Neely, great YouTuber person. He like graduated from Berkeley with a degree or two in music or something, so he's really knowledgeable about music and music theory and stuff, and music history, and he does like these video essays on obscure music topics. They're really interesting and entertaining and stuff, and sometimes they're not super obscure, sometimes they are. It's cool anyway. And then he does like Q&A stuff a lot. Sometimes they're formal videos where he does the Q&A, and sometimes live streams, and this was one of his Q&A live streams. And, the chat was going crazy, and after a few tries, I got him to read mine, and I basically asked him, can you say Mile Run, okay? So he did. He, like, leaned into his mic, and he was like, Mile Run, right? And I was like, yes, I got him to say it, and that was cool. But I wasn't recording. I wasn't recording my screen or anything, so I didn't get that audio. And I thought that wouldn't be a problem because he's uploaded streams in the past, but he didn't upload that stream. So I didn't get that. But again, I'm glad that fell through because what actually happened was cooler. Anyway, now what could be cooler than that, you ask? This would be cooler. So basically, at some point I had the idea, like, what if I watched the world record mile run and played the song in sync, okay? Because they're the same length, I can sync them up. And again, I wasn't like looking for the drop vocal by doing this, I just thought it would be interesting. But it turned out to give me the drop vocal because this is what happened. There's an empty measure, right? A measure of silence where the drop vocal is supposed to be. And so as I play it, in that measure of silence, okay, this measure of silence which was put there long before I ever even had the idea of making it mile, or even had the idea of making it one small step, right? In that measure, the announcer says, if you've heard the track, you know what he says, that's good pace for a new world record. And it's within, like, literally within a quarter of a second of exactly on that measure. It's so perfect. It's so perfect. I love it. It's like, what he actually says is so perfect. That's good pace for a new world record. Like, that world record, like, that kind of word has this, like, connotation of, like, limitlessness, right? And that's the album theme, right? Is like humanity pushing the limits, right? That's why the first one is about Apollo 11, because we went to the moon, and that was like pushing the limits of what we could do, where we could go. And this is pushing the limits of how fast can we run, and all that stuff. And so he says this perfect line, and it's actually in the exact place where the drop vocal is. So if you play the track and you watch the thing, what you hear when the drop vocal happens is what you would be hearing from the audio of the actual world record mile run when it was being broadcast. And so that was the biggest, like, thing that happened. That was amazing. But there's actually more. And basically there was a horn. There was a horn in the background, okay? And I was like, oh no, this is probably not going to be the best thing, because like, if there's a tone, there's a note, and if I need to tune that note to get to the key, that's gonna make the actual speaking sound weird, and I don't want the speaking to sound weird, I want it to sound normal. And then, of course, it turned out that the note was an F, which is the key of the song, and the note that the drop hits. So, it ended up working out great. And, you know, it was a little out of tune, fine-tuned it, no big deal, right? So it was the right note, okay? And those were the biggest, like, okay? So technically there was a 1 in 12 chance that note would be the right one, and it was the right one. Yeah, anyway, that's kind of the story of the drop vocal for Mile. You know, I also just love the song itself. I think it sounds great, and it's fun to listen to and fun to dance to, whatnot. There's even more though. There's even more, okay? So the drop vocal says that's good pace for a new world record, right? And at the time the announcer, like, was right about that. There was a new world record. But the song itself right now is the current world record, right? So if you were to run in pace with that song, you would just be matching the current world record, right? Except for the fact that the audio file is exactly that length. But the last note of the song, you know, there's reverb that, like, decays and then ends at the end of the audio file, but the last actual note, the actual, like, last sound of the song is a couple seconds before that, which means if you actually ran in sync with the song itself and ended with the last note of the song, you would be at good pace for a new world record. So, there you go, there's the story of Mile. One of my favorite tracks on the album, that's why it's the third one on there, because I kind of put them, like, I put the title track first, which is one of my favorites as well. I mean, I love them all, right? That's why I put them on there. There are a lot of tracks that just, like, I thought was, like, they're pretty good, but, you know, like, I'm not, like, 110% on them, so, right? And that's why it's 10 songs as opposed to, like, 15, because there were a lot of songs that didn't go on there. But, you know, I love Mile. And I hope you enjoy it too. If you haven't listened to it, what are you doing? Go listen to it. Link in the description. And yeah, there you go. Story of Mile. Thanks for watching. See you next video. Bye.